Hey, and we are live. What's up, wrestling fans? I'm Doug.
And I'm Kevin, and you're tuning in to the post Thanksgiving, post War Games special edition of the Two Bros Wrestling Show.
Thanksgiving and War Games. What could go better than Thanksgiving and War Games, Kevin?
Well, that's what we're here to talk about, Doug. It's just exactly how it went. And folks, if you are just watching to see a recap, we are going to go match by match and let you know who won, who lost, and what we thought of the matches. And before we go, though, into spoiler territory, we'd like to talk a little bit about whether or not it's just worth your time if you're wanting to check this one out. Doug, NXT, they tend to keep the cards small and number of matches, and then the quality of those matches high. And I think they did that tonight. So, short review, thumbs up from this guy. What says the other bro?
There we go. There we go. I've got my NXT shirt on and a thumb. Yeah, there we go. I'll give wait into frame. There we go. 2 thumbs up, even.
So that is 4 thumbs up for the last NXT pay-per-view of this year, folks, as far as checking it out. Definitely. Beginning to end, the support matches I thought did what they were supposed to do. They were good. And then the main matches delivered. And you can't really ask any more from a pay-per-view than that, Doug.
Really, I mean, it did everything it's designed to do, and NXT rarely misses the mark with their takeovers. So,
well,
yeah.
let's get into let's talk match by match, folks. If you aren't looking for a recap and you saw the event, chime in. Let us know what you thought of tonight's matches and anything we might miss in our recap, or if you disagree with us, let us know that too. Because match one, Doug, we start out with the women's War Games match, and I'll be honest, this was my match of the night. I thought the first match was probably the best match of the whole evening.
It was it was great, man. War Games is such a car wreck of a match anyway, and I mean that in the best way I can in related to professional wrestling. And these women, went all in.
Wrong promotion.
No, but really they did.
They did. As far as winners and losers, folks, it was Tony Storm, Dakota Kai, Raquel Gonzalez, and Candice. They ended up getting the win. The Hill faction got the win over Ember Moon, Rhea Ripley, Io Shirai, and Shotzi Blackheart. Doug, I thought this one was interesting, if only because, War Games is a match that Dusty Rhodes came up with years ago for the old NWA.
Right.
And I don't know the numbers, but, throughout history, it usually plays out. The concept behind the War Games match is you end up with the heel faction having the one-man advantage throughout most of the match, so that it always looks like the good guys can't overcome, and then of course they usually do. And this was the unusual War Games match in that the heels actually were at the disadvantage when it comes to being down a person, starting out 2-on-1 and then 3-on-2 and so forth. They did kind of even that up though at the end a little bit.
Yeah, we got a little bit of intervention and a lockout there for a little while that kind of evened things up for a time to bring the heels. Well, I mean, being dirty heels like they're supposed to be.
I thought that was a really clever way to take away what is kind of what I thought was going to be hard for them to overcome, is that how do you get heat on the match if the good guys have the advantage all the way through? But that was a pretty creative way of doing it, keeping Io out of the ring. Although when she did get in the ring, man, did she get in the ring?
Like missile.
I mean, my goodness, that was quite a way to enter. And there was a lot of spots like that, I thought, Doug, in this match, just ones that I think are going to be memorable beyond just the night itself and the match itself. I will say that I am a fan of almost all the women in this match. I really was never all that high on Gonzalez, and not that I have anything against her. It's just she always looked green, not ready, had a great look with the size and all. But I really have to say that tonight, I thought that she looked incredibly strong. She has come a long way, I realized, and I think she showed a lot of that tonight.
Well, and apparently somebody else thinks she's looking a lot stronger these days since she got the win. So
And you know that visual, and I love that they teased it and then took a while to get to it, and they only gave us a taste of it. But the visual of Rhea Ripley and Gonzalez, these two giants looking eye to eye, especially considering how the
The
Green
Green
Gonzalez,
Gonzalez.
how the formerly Green Gonzalez has come such a long way in her game. That looks like it could be a really promising feud at
Yeah.
some point when they want to pull the trigger on that. Um, I'm looking at some of my other notes here because I probably made more notes on this one than any of the other matches. Um, I'm still a little undecided, I guess, on Tony Storm as a heel. That part is going to be take some getting used to. I love the dual Tower of Doom spot they did in the corner going into the opposite rings. There was one point where there was this vicious double stomp that Dakota Kai did off the top rope onto Io, who was still in the trash can, and she hit her so solidly and completely that she legitimately couldn't get the trash can off of her. It compacted so close to her body. It looked great. I thought that Dakota Kai was maybe, other than Gonzalez, probably the other person that looked the strongest in this match. She had a lot of big moments, I thought.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I think Rhea Ripley is one of the strongest things on it NXT anyway. But
No doubt.
I think Ripley stepped back and let some other people shine in this. And I was just noticing the ring awareness, especially since we're talking about two rings, that, when the match really started to pick up and people are, taking their turns doing spots, they're literally taking turns, two girls at a time going through the motions and doing their spots all over the ring. But it was just like clockwork though. As soon as some big spot is finished, boom, here comes another one on the others, not on the other side of the ring, but in the other side of the other ring.
I know, right? I mean, was that not? And they it never at one point looked so overly choreographed, like they were all just waiting around for their turns. I mean, this wasn't one of the pre-produced matches that we saw early on in the pandemic. Almost all shows now are completely live, and these ladies were doing this in real time, and we're making it look like clockwork the way they did it. That eclipse that Ember
Yeah,
Moon did on the chairs, how brutal did that look?
yeah.
And then, of course, Io taking that ridiculous bump that ended up being the finisher, where Gonzalez got the giant, choke slam from the top rope through the elevated, not just on the ground, but elevated ladder down onto the metal that was between the two rings. I mean, just brutal from beginning to end. So well done. Kudos.
Yeah, absolutely. And I see Scott's got a shout out here about AEW this past Wednesday. Yeah, never. I may get some heat for this, but I've never been a Sting fan. But I'm glad to see somebody. I'm glad to see a WCW legend, that's on par, I think, with Taker actually in AEW. And I'll just leave that at that.
Didn't you have a Sting shirt at one time? Am I remembering?
I don't think so.
I, for some reason, thought that like your grandmother had bought you a Sting shirt or something.
Well, maybe so.
As far as my opinion on that, I mean, I think, Sting is a legend. I was not a huge Sting fan. I kind of like early Sting and the Ric Flair like era of more, buzz cut Sting. I did the Crow Sting did, its job during the NWO era. Post that TNA, WWE, now AEW, I'm a little more, apathetic, to be honest. But we'll see where they go with it. Obviously, a big coup.
And AEW did, kind of telegraph that with having Darby Allin, their face painted guy sitting in the rafters for the past couple of weeks, just kind of teasing that.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Next match, Doug, we had after that. I wouldn't want to follow that women's match at the start, but I thought they did a smart thing. Tommaso Ciampa and Thatcher, they went at it, and I thought it was a good match, a good come down match for the kind of match that had preceded it. You had this, like you said, in a good way, a train wreck of a contest, and you follow it up with guys that go immediately to the ground and start having like a holds-based wrestling match, which I thought was smart.
Absolutely. I'm still confused how Thatcher got busted open. I mean, I don't know if that was a because I mean, it was. I'm thinking his ear, the side of his face or something. I don't know how he got busted open. I mean, they show the replay over and over of like that high knee to the head, but I don't.
Yeah, I don't think that was it either, to be honest.
I'm really confused how he got busted open, but Thatcher in the match did get busted open, and of
It
course,
looked vicious
it,
because I mean we don't see blood in WWE a whole lot because they don't really blade anymore. So when you see blood, it's usually the hard way. But when it's the hard way, it's very rarely from the ear.
yeah,
So by the fact that Ciampa had him in like a side headlock kind of move and was just squeezing really hard, to see the pool of blood forming on Ciampa's arm,
hmm
it made just what is normally a rest hold look absolutely like he was killing the man. But which I thought actually added to the match as it turned out. I thought it was a good contest. It didn't steal the show, but um, you know, honestly though, that if I had one problem with this match, Doug, it's that WWE sort of booked themselves in a bit of a corner in that I really think this is the match that both guys need to win, and you have
hmm
to have some guy win.
yeah,
Ciampa's a main eventer, and yet after his injury, he has had a really difficult time coming back, and they really haven't had anything for him. He's missed a lot of shows. He's just not been featured on pay-per-views, so he has had a completely forgettable 2020,
right.
and so he really needed to win. On the same end of things, though, Thatcher is focused on almost week after week, but continues to take losses. So Thatcher really needs a win over somebody of significance to be considered, an act that we're supposed to believe in. So I know somebody had to win, and it probably needed to be Ciampa. But I think at this point now, the next thing they have to do is get Thatcher over as a heel, as a
hmm
shoot heel, and by having him have a significant victory over somebody of note.
Yeah, agreed.
You want to move on to Loomis versus Grimes. Dexter Loomis wins
So,
this one, by the way. It's a
man,
strap match, too. We should note that. It is a strap match.
I'm really not sure what the deal was about Grimes, bringing his own strap and insist on using that. I expected that to play a bit bigger of a role, like he's got his own gimmick strap or something. But
I thought it was going to come off his wrist or something.
yeah,
Yeah.
I really, expected some sort of shenanigans there. And I've got to say, ever since we saw this guy, Loomis, like last year in our last wrestling show that we were actually able to go to, NXT was that Columbus? That was in Columbus,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That it's been so long ago. It's been like 17 years ago, it feels like.
Yeah.
That, this dude, I mean, he can work, but I just still have a hard time getting into the Loomis character, man.
I have to disagree. I think that it's one of the coolest characters that they have as far as just unique. And I think the same about Grimes. It's a bit of a comedy feud that they have had in a way because Grimes, and his hillbilly shoot me to the moon shtick is a little over the top, but again, in a good way because the guy can work and he makes a great chicken heel. Um, I'm honestly not a huge fan of strap matches in
hmm
general. But that said, I thought for what is usually a match that can be kind of limited in the fact that you don't have a lot of movement because you're a little too close to each other, I was surprised by how much I enjoyed it and how much they were able to do with it. They actually had a lot more movement, top ropes, through the ropes,
hmm
a lot more of things come into play than you would typically see in a strap match. And it was stiff. There were times where they were really belting each other, both with their forearms and fist, and then that strap itself, which actually did play into the match.
hmm
That secondary strap, if anything, I guess provided the bag to still be sitting there with the strap in it, so that when he got it, he could put the bag over Loomis's
Yeah.
head to deliver some damage. And then I thought the finishing sequence was nice, where the strap got used as part of the submission to really
Yeah.
look like he was trying to blind the man.
I really
So
did
yeah,
like that. It provided a really great visual to
good,
end
really
that.
good visual.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, Loomis wins this one. Again, not a scene stiller, but these were the support matches, and it delivered. I thought was very good. Then I guess before we get to the match, I would say between this match and the following match, got me excited. We got a Karrion Kross tease.
Triple H had teased earlier that Karrion Cross would be back any second, so I was actually expecting to maybe see Karrion Cross just destroy somebody tonight in the middle of a match, and just to announce his return. But it is a bit more appropriate for the character to have some theatric tease like they did. So for Karrion Cross and Scarlett, this is much more appropriate than having him come out and destroy somebody. So.
I know during these pandemic times, time is kind of distorted, but man, it only seems like he has been out for maybe a month or so. I'm
Right.
sure it's a lot longer. I don't know if he's just rehabbed faster than they expected, or if this is the time that around the time he was scheduled to be back from his injury. But
I think that this injury it has about a 10 to 12 week recovery period. I mean, and it's been about 10 to 12 weeks. So
So yeah, time is distorted and just slipping away from me. But I hadn't seen the Triple H hint, so I was all excited. I'm like, oh, Karrion Cross and Scarlett are coming back because they never really got going. Like they won the belt and then had to immediately drop it. So I'm eager to see what they do with it now. But next we have the feel-good story of Leon Ruff as the North American champion against Damian Priest and Johnny Gargano. And folks, if you've not been following this, essentially Gargano and Priest have been in a feud over the North American title. And somewhere along the way, a 135-pound wrestler managed to get inserted into this feud to add a bit of spice to it. And honestly, it's been one of my favorite stories over the last couple of weeks because the kid has done really well as the fluke champion that does just enough to give you belief that he maybe can keep retaining it. I thought the Cinderella story might go on a little longer than it did because I was enjoying it, but wasn't meant to be. Leon Ruff dropped the belt tonight. Johnny Gargano won. I actually thought, Doug, the triple threat might be a way to keep it on him.
I did too. I honestly, we didn't get to do a pre-show on this one, but I honestly expected Ruff to retain through some sort of shenanigans, through some sort of mishap between Martinez. Oh, he's not Punishment Martinez anymore.
Damian Priest. I'm getting used to all that. Yeah.
Thank you, Damian Priest and Johnny Gargano. Something happens. Ruff gets a surprise roll up out of nowhere and keeps it. But
yeah.
Yeah,
I kind of thought the same thing. Like Damian Priest destroys Johnny Gargano, and Ruff, comes and pushes him out of the ring and takes his pinfall away from him, or something along those lines. I don't know where this goes for Ruff because he has done really well in his role. I will say during the match he showed some extremely impressive agility, bouncing around on those ropes. He definitely looks legit when he goes to the air. I thought there was a fantastic, a great psychology that was used. The idea that Johnny didn't want anything to do with Damian Priest. So I'm going to get him out of the ring, isolate Ruff, and quickly take care of him because it should be easy, right? Because he's this fluke champion. So I'm going to go for those early pinfalls in that first couple of minutes because Johnny just thought he could walk right out of there that fast with it. Was great. And on the other side, Priest was basically doing the complete opposite, which was also great psychology in that I can win this anytime I want. I'm acting like Ruff is a gnat that is just annoying me and just stay on my way and let me destroy this guy I hate right now. And I thought all of that actually was going to, as we were saying, lead to Ruff somehow slipping on a banana peel and keeping the belt. But I guess it wasn't meant to be. Priest did look like a monster, which is exactly how he should be booked. And Johnny looked like a coward, which is exactly how he should be booked. But
yeah, absolutely did. And the intervention, the no DQ intervention of all the ghost face whatever with the lead pipe that it actually takes to take Priest out was puts him that much more over as this beast of a monster that he could be.
And if there's anything, I mean, it's not surprising that they would go that route in order to take out the beast. But I thought it was a good match overall. I really enjoyed it. I will say that as far as what's going to happen, will they, won't they? Like the exciting part of the match probably ended about the time all the Ghostface guys got involved because there was so much shenanigans and extra interference there at the end. I think it maybe took a little bit of the momentum away from where it was going, even if it was a bit expected.
Yeah.
But I figured that this is probably then just the way that now we will see the Johnny and Damian Priest feud get to continue.
Yeah.
So if nothing else, Leon Ruff not only gave us a feel-good Cinderella story during the middle of this pandemic year of wrestling, it also managed to extend the Damian Priest, Johnny Gargano story maybe a little longer than it would have otherwise. And
Right.
I'm fine for that.
I'm good with it. I mean, overall, up to this point, it's been a really excellent night of wrestling, and then we roll into, you know,
Main event.
main event. And let me just say, man, I think we both unfairly did this to poor Pat McAfee back before his debut, and I straight up apologized on the show for all the trash I was talking about. Yet another celebrity, getting involved in wrestling. Pat McAfee might just be the best thing on NXT right now.
Right? Well, as far as the character goes, he is a great heel. Obviously, as a sports talk show host, he's going to have some, talking and acting type chops, but there's no doubt about it when you hear him that the man is a wrestling fan because he understands this business in a way that most celebrities who are just coming in to collect a paycheck don't. And which is why the apologies we gave to him is deserved. I don't think he had as much to prove this time because last time around he was in a one-on-one match and showed us all what he could do. So this
Absolutely.
time around, he didn't have to carry as much weight, and he also didn't have to, so he didn't have to surprise anyone, as we all kind of knew that, hey, this guy's going to be good. And he was obviously no fluke. It wasn't a one-match deal that he worked up, and that was all he could do. He showed that he could do some different stuff tonight and play his part. That swanton off the top of the cage, or that back bump he took from the top rope where the neck, his neck kind of went through the table and not his full body. He's not afraid of taking chances either. He's not letting the other guys do the hard lifting for him.
Do you think though? Because I was thinking this when I watched that, to be a part timer, and I mean, and when I say part timers, I always think of people like Cena now, The Rock before him, these folks who were wrestlers who go off and just come back as part, or even Taker, in the past, 5 years, 10 years, Taker's been a bit of a part timer. Lesnar at one point, well, Lesnar, even when he was champion, was kind of a part timer. But for him to be a part timer, does it lessen Adam Cole when, a part time talk show host kicks out of a Panama Sunrise?
That was the biggest surprise to me. That I thought that was your finish right there.
Yes.
And I was, if not the finish, then because these are sort of train wreck, everybody in the ring, everything going on at once, kind of melees. You would have expected that somebody would have knocked him off of him instead of him kick out.
Yes.
But that goes to show how much they must think of what they're going to do with him beyond just this, to let him, of all people, be able to kick out of a top rope, Panama's at the end of a brutal War Games match. And I guess we didn't say at the beginning, for those who didn't see the show, this main event we're talking about is the Undisputed Era versus Team McAfee, as I guess they are now being called. And this is the fourth time that Undisputed Era had been in War Games matches, and I have to say, this surely is the first time they've been faces in these matches, right?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
And I don't know what the win-loss record is, but
I'm thinking, is it 3 wins for Undisputed Era?
They won tonight. I couldn't remember. I know that I could remember one. I didn't know if this was now 2-2 or 3-1. But yeah, they were the faces in this one, and that actually still takes a little getting used to, as them as faces. I did think that they had a great one of my favorite spots of the match was when McAfee was down and the Undisputed Era guys took the other 3 members of the heel faction, had them lined up against the cage, and then proceeded one by one, all 4 members of Undisputed Era get a move that would smash the dude's head into the cage, and then quickly, like piston work, move to the next guy and then to the third guy until they were all down flat. That just looked fantastic. And then, of course, the heel comeuppance thing of like the McAfee being isolated and realizing that there's no one left standing, and they all just gang up on him. That was also very, very cool. I also thought the ending, there was a really great flurry there at the end.
Sequence, just boom, boom, boom.
Like clockwork again, like we were saying with the women's match at first. And then, I thought the chair, the end of the match, Cole going over the chair the way he did, that looked really tough. Great match. I guess if I had one thing to say that's a negative, and it really isn't a negative, it's just I guess, condition of our modern era of wrestling. When you have these cards where you have multiple match types that are the same, even though they were spaced first and last match, you don't know how the match is going to turn out. This was a really good main event. It would have been a great main event had the bar not been raised in that first match. Because if you know now, if you knew then what we know now, I would have probably switched the booking of them and made the women's match the main event. Because I think overall, if you had to compare them, and that's what happens if you have two of the same type of match in the same pay-per-view,
right? Yeah.
Hell in a Cell, which was the best Hell in a Cell, that you just naturally compare them. They both were great. The men's match would have been fantastic on its own. It was maybe a little less memorable overall when it comes to spots that people will remember later, because there were just so many memorable spots in that women's contest.
I gotta say, there was one moment early on where we saw Adam Cole reverse a bitter end into a DDT, which just looked beautiful.
I mean, when do you think the Undisputed Era or Adam Cole? I know it's been rumored for a long time. Are they just NXT for life, kind of Johnny Gargano types at this point? Or there's been so much talk.
Are they like Ciampa, Gargano, NXT for life? Are they afraid to go the main roster at this point? Although I did notice that they did have a lot of red and black on tonight. Don't know if they're telegraphing anything with that.
Yeah, there's part of me that would worry about losing them from NXT and being misbooked or mishandled on the main roster, but Undisputed Era is still one of the best things on any wrestling show that they happen to be on, and they delivered tonight in the main event, as did the celebrity in his faction, which, again, all our apologies. He just keeps proving us wrong each time he gets in the ring, and certainly when he's on the mic, he's gold right now. But top to bottom, great pay-per-view, Doug.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I got to say, Pete Dunne is just looking lean and mean right now, man.
I wouldn't mess with him.
But yeah, top to bottom, I love all the players in this final act. Love them all, even McAfee at this point, because he belongs on a wrestling show. He legit does.
And this was a wrestling show, folks, that if you didn't see it, there isn't any matches that I would say that you should skip. You definitely need to see the two War Games matches, but the three matches that come between them are also worth your time. When you only have 5 matches on a show and storylines backing them all up, and then performers like they have in these matches, great way for NXT to end their year.
Absolutely. Make a point to catch this. Maybe watch it in a reverse order. Actually, watch the main event first and work your way backwards. Do some line and linear storytelling with this one. I've got to agree with Kevin. I think the women's match was the match of the night.
You can't go wrong, folks, in whatever order you watch it. Just make sure you go out of your way to watch it if you didn't see it tonight. And thank you for tuning in. I know typically, Doug, when we do these recap shows, we go live immediately after. And so whether you're watching us right now on Facebook or YouTube, we don't have we don't do our normal segments where we start with some news and then end with some matches of the week and things. But I think it'd be remiss tonight if we didn't at least end by making mention of the fact that we would like to send our condolences, as we mentioned on our Facebook page. This week, the professional wrestling world lost Pat Patterson. And if you are our age or younger, you probably think of Pat Patterson in his comedic role on screen as one of the McMahon stooges, along with Gerald Briscoe in the 90s. Doug and I are really too young to remember Pat's in-ring career. But if you ever have a chance to go back and watch some things in his in-ring career, definitely do that too. The match he had with Sergeant Slaughter in the late 70s, that boot camp match, was bloody and so ahead of its time. It's worth checking out. But for those that don't know Pat other than as a stooge, Doug, it's probably easy for a lot of people to not realize that for someone not named McMahon, there's very few people you could probably name that has more to do with the way that modern wrestling now looks than Pat Patterson.
This is very true. I mean, legit. I mean, we probably do know him best as a stooge, but legit one of Vince's right hand men. I think maybe the only person who's not a McMahon right now that has that much influence is named Bruce Pritchard. So,
And Pat was that guy for years. I mean,
yep.
decades behind the scenes. The famous like if there were ever psychology wise, if ever there was like how do we get to where it is we want to go with this, with the bookers, the writers, Vince, if they had a booking decision that they got themselves into that they needed to figure out how they get to there, Pat was the go-to guy. Whether it's the very famous double turn at WrestleMania where Bret Hart goes in the face but comes out the heel, Stone Cold goes in the heel, comes out the face, and that was Pat Patterson. The Royal Rumble concept, that was Pat Patterson. You hear guys all the time go, to Pat when they wanted to figure out the finish and the sequencing of their matches because his mind was just that good for this business. And it takes a lot to be able to stay in Vince McMahon land and in his good favor for 40 years.
Right.
I mean, it was Pat that was given the role of handling, Mike Tyson when Mike came in as a celebrity. It was Pat Patterson. If you notice, if you go back and watch WrestleMania 1, it's Pat who is the referee in that main event because if things were going sideways or you needed some help, with Mr. T and getting these guys through to a passable main event match, they relied that much on Pat Patterson. So it probably, I think that, a lot of his contributions outside of people knowing things about like the Royal Rumble and such, the first Intercontinental Champion. I mean, you could just go on.
Yeah, absolutely.
The first openly gay wrestler that I can think of at a time when you certainly wouldn't imagine that would have been accepted.
Right.
We're talking he was openly out in the 60s and 70s. I mean, I don't think that he was ever forced into a closet and was accepted in that testosterone driven overly masculine world. So yeah, Pat Patterson was a trailblazer in so many ways. So it's a big loss to the wrestling world this week.
Absolutely.
And definitely didn't want to get by without saying that at the end of our show. But, folks, thank you for tuning in. And, we do, maybe you should say, Doug, that next week we're back on at our normal time of 8 o'clock. It's another pay-per-view, Doug. Next week,
year-end pay-per-views.
It is our year end too, folks. Next week, our 8 o'clock show will be our last show of 2020, and we will be previewing TLC, which is the final pay-per-view of the wrestling year. But I will say that beyond that, our next show after that will be the first of 2021, as odd as that sounds already, but that's only a few weeks away. And Doug, we have a really special show planned for that because we're doing our awards show, and we'll be promoting that. We'll be promoting that through the holidays, so you guys have some ideas of what it is we're going to talk about. What our match of the year, our performer of the year. We want you guys thinking about it too, and join us for that one, so that you can tell us what you thought of the year in wrestling 2020. But those are the next two Bros Wrestling shows, and we hope that you tune in for them.
And with that, we're going to get out of here. It's late. Thanks for joining us after the pay-per-view. I've been Doug.
And I've been Kevin.
We've been rambling about wrestling. Y'all have a good night.
Good night.